Hey, everybody, welcome again to eChannel News. We've got Brendan Conlon. He's the Global Director in Supply Chain Defense at BlueVoyant. And we're going to talk about the company, what they're doing, and a lot of stuff's happening out there about supply chain. We hear it all the time. And if you don't have your supply chain, what's that thing? If you're only as strong as the weakest link,
Right.
that sounds like a good tagline, man. Um, Brendan, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Right on. All right, well, let's jump into this. Give us the overview first of all, BlueVoyant. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so BlueVoyant's kind of what we consider a full scope cybersecurity company. We have a couple of different product lines that we focus on. So managed detection and response is one, and then supply chain security, third party risk management is another, and then digital brand protection. So like online reputation management. So, but all three of those are sort of combined into one thing, which we call our cyber defense platform. So it gives basically security teams, larger organizations, the ability to actually see not just the vulnerabilities and the problems in their own network, but then also basically how everything impacts them. So all the third parties that they're reliant on, and then all sort of the brand and reputation management that you see online for them.
So, Brandon, of those three things, which is the one, if you had to pick one that you must do, which one is it?
Yeah, I being the on the supply chain defense side of things, I definitely feel like that is critical. Obviously, you have to protect your own networks. We do see definitely like certainly CISOs for larger organizations when there is a problem or something published globally where it says like, hey, there's a vulnerability here. One of the first things they do is say like, where do we own that type of equipment? Do we own that piece of software? And then the very next question that they ask is, what about all our vendors that we're reliant on? Like, is there trouble on the horizon because our vendors are actually using this piece of software as well? So I tend to focus on the harder problems in my mind. I enjoy those sort of like tough things and software supply chain security, as well as just general sort of third-party risk management and supply chain security is one of those really tough problems that I love helping companies solve.
So, well, let's double click in supply chain. I mean, we all heard about it before, right? As a matter of fact, if you don't have your supply chain intact, you're extremely vulnerable because who's to know what the person that's delivering that widget to you for one
Yep.
penny is doing with their stuff that could infiltrate and make your system crumble. How bad is it?
Yeah, so bad. I never tend to operate in the like bad or good or anything like that, but it's difficult, right? Like it is work to understand what third parties you're actually reliant on. Pretty much every company on the planet now cannot operate on its own, right? Like you're either using software, you're using Microsoft, right? You're using some other sort of like piece of software, you're using cloud, AWS, Google. I think there was the Google outage just like a couple of weeks ago. You've got software that you're reliant on, routers, firewalls, that sort of thing. So you're not an island unto yourself if you're a company. So it's a difficult problem in the sense of some people just don't actually know where to start. So that's kind of where BlueVoyant comes in. We help at a strategic level to basically help craft and what your strategy should be. But then we also have tactical implementations of things like, hey, we have these capabilities that help you basically reduce the cost. A lot of companies are using spreadsheets to manage, what software do I have? What devices do I have? What does my network look like? What vendors am I reliant on? They're using like an Excel spreadsheet to manage all this and understand what the business implications are if like a vendor goes down. Whereas really there's better ways to do it now, right? There's certainly like Excel runs the world, we know that, but like in reality, there are more efficient ways to do it from a business process standpoint, where that actually help improve security. So
It's amazing once humans start to use one thing, they
yeah.
never will change it, even though it's just, people are still writing their passwords down, man.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it
I've
is,
seen, I've worked with like private equity firms and large sort of like global investment groups that, every decision that they're making is based on sort of pivot tables in an Excel doc.
yeah,
So it's sort of like, wow, that's difficult.
that's
There
nice.
probably better ways to do that.
Usually that's my cue to exit the room.
Right,
Because you just can't,
right.
how do you explain that? It's like,
Yeah,
where have you been living? Um,
yeah.
so let's talk about let's talk about the actual challenges that people are having. Obviously, it's not just yourself. Are we talking only about what the solutions we're using as a company, or are you also talking about the companies that supply us with solutions and what they're using as well, or all
Yeah.
of the above?
That's all of the above. So when BlueVoyant talks about supply chain defense, we categorize it as third-party risk management or supply chain defense, depending on kind of what market you're in. If you're a financial sector entity, really it's third-party risk management. If
Mhm.
you're, a global manufacturer, it is supply chain. It's true supply chain, right? Like managing that piece of it. So I will say, looking at those companies, understanding what your own business does. So, as a security practitioner, if I'm the CISO of a large organization, I need to know what my business is, right? How does my company make money? The second thing you need to know is like, what is the technology that underpins those business functions, those critical functions for my business? And those technologies and external vendors that you're reliant on, external entities, third parties that you're reliant on, knowing how they do things from a technical standpoint is really critical for a CISO and a security practitioner to understand so that they know if that company goes away for 2 hours, 3 hours, 3 days, a week because of ransomware or a terrible patch that they put up for their software. If they go away, how is my business impacted? Are there any security implications to that? In the same case for like an actual global manufacturing entity, the widget supplier, right? Like brake pads for, the Ford Explorer, right? Like
Mhm.
they only maintain, 24 to 48 hours of brake pads in the manufacturing facility. So like if trucks stop arriving with brake pads for more than 3 days, cars aren't getting off the manufacturing line. That sort of concept of like just in time sort of manufacturing is critical. And from BlueVoyant's perspective, from a cybersecurity perspective, and how you look at those entities, how you understand what they're relying on, the technologies that your vendors are reliant on, is really the same problem conceptually because it's an external entity that you have no authority over, but that you are heavily reliant on. How do you actually work with them? How do you engage with them at a security level? And then how do you basically help your own business by dealing with them and making sure that they have the right security practices in place?
Yeah, it's like so many moving parts, man. It's like I'm not even sure it's even, humanly possible to kind of look at it and figure out like what happens when this goes wrong, then that could go wrong, and that could go
Right.
wrong. And it's like, how do you juggle this? What's the day in your life look like, Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the biggest thing is you try and understand as much as possible, right? Like
Mm,
that you always have to be sort of it's sort of the way you hire people, right? Like most people like you want to hire curious people and you want to be curious as a security practitioner. So you have to be curious about your business and you have to constantly be sort of thinking about these things and have the right processes in place to understand that you're not going to be able to understand everything, right? A great example of this would be like the CrowdStrike Microsoft sort of interaction when there was a patch put up, like and it didn't do well, right?
mm.
You really can't plan for you can't expect that or you can't expect to understand that that is going to be a problem because you sort of trust these entities to be able to do the right things and be able to like test their software in an appropriate way, push the patches in an appropriate way, and in reality, the way you have to do it is you sort of understand what your business is, you understand and there's the things that and then you have to plan for things that like, okay, well, what happens if we lose internet connectivity? What happens if the internet goes down, right?
Oh my
For
God, don't talk about that, man. You're not supposed
right,
to
but
mention that
but
word.
but it's basically like like the Google outage for a couple hours,
Sure.
right? Everybody is relying on Google, right? There's a lot of companies that have sort of that. Do you have backups in place? Is it a concern? How costly is it to actually have if you're using like mostly if you're heavily relying on like GCP and you're like, okay, well, our backups for like the critical functions might be in like AWS or maybe we have like a Microsoft cloud. Maybe that's what we do. Maybe there's a way to do it. But in a lot of cases, it's too expensive to actually have those same functions sort of as a failover to a completely different organization. And then you just say, well, that's the risk that we're accepting. everybody went down, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of like an easy out, I guess, to say like, we could have done it. Like if you're reporting to your board as a CISO or as a CIO, we could have had a backup, but it would have cost us, an extra $50 million a quarter. Are
Hmm.
you willing to pay that? Like we can mitigate this risk for
For
50 million
sure.
a quarter, right?
But
And it's like, is it worth it? Maybe it is, right? In the cases where your revenue is, $1 billion a quarter,
yeah.
maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's not, right? So like those are the sort of like cost benefit analysis things that you have to do, like look
For the
at.
right amount of money, man, you could solve any problem, apparently.
Exactly.
You,
Exactly. Yeah.
you may even be able to go to Mars, apparently.
Yeah. It's
So,
like that old engineering problem, right? Like it's
exactly.
like fast, what is it? Like fast, quick, and accurate, like pick two, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah, you can do anything for a lot of money.
Yeah. No, reality, in the real world, right? It's all a balance of risk tolerance, right? I mean, how much
Yep.
can we afford based on the level of risk? At some point, stuff will go wrong. As a matter of fact, when you peel back that whole onion, Brandon, I've been talking to the gods of the grid, and that electrical grid, and
Yep.
I just, I just say, should we really be worried about this? And everybody in the room goes, yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
anybody
And
talking about it?
there are some organizations like prior to BlueVoyant, I worked in an organization. It was the Analysis and Resilience Center. So we looked at critical infrastructure,
Yeah.
and it was like the key technologies that underpin the critical functions of the U.S. government or the United States. In our case, we focus on the financial sector. So like understanding there are entities that are looking at this, and there's like funding involved. But you do need, like, for example, like grid is such a complex problem because of the way both Canada and the US sort of break out their grids. But you see a lot of like interesting research. I think I just saw a LinkedIn post. There's a researcher in Europe that was looking at research papers put out by the Chinese looking at the US grid and the European grid, right? And
Mm.
actually saying like, what's the most efficient way to take it down, right? So like these are published like peer-reviewed academic studies by an entity like China, right?
Mhm.
And you're like, yeah, I mean, we are looking at it. There are entities looking at it. Some of them aren't, necessarily us.
That's what I worry about. It's like, I mean, like it's like anything else, man. Everybody looks for that weak point, right?
Yeah,
And they put the pressure on that weak point, right?
yeah,
And the reality is that and it's anybody's game now, right? Everybody's got the ability to do these things, right? And the challenge is that how do we defend from these things happening? And
yeah,
and as you
yeah,
guys are doing, right? You got to
yeah. And
monitor
there's
those risks and decide if what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, there's interesting things also, I would say, in the space of like software bill of materials is one thing that like companies are looking at. We've got sort of a newer capability that we're fielding now in partnership with another company to do it at scale, where the ability to actually understand like what libraries are being used by like either open source libraries, and then being able to sort of maintain that so that you know exactly like, hey, we've got this piece of equipment installed. It's using this piece of software and it's reliant on these libraries. And these libraries, one or two of them may have vulnerabilities. I think there was an example. I believe it came out like 2 years ago, and it was Jitan, and it was in the XeUtils compression library in Linux,
Mhm.
right? Where it was somebody who was basically like it was a bad actor who insinuated themselves into the open source community, did things well for about 2 years, but then started inserting bad code into a Linux distro, right? That's widely used. And it was one of these things that was discovered by, I think it was a Microsoft engineer, might have been a different engineer that actually discovered this, but there was bad code that basically allowed sort of remote access in and remote control of like different Linux distros. So there's like interesting things that are happening, and we are looking. Like BlueVoyant is constantly looking at these things, and seeing what capabilities are sort of on the horizon that are fieldable at scale for larger and for enterprises. SBOM, so software bill of materials, is one that's come out. We've seen a lot of interest in it from European countries because of there's some DORA regulations
Mhm.
that have come out. in particular on the financial sector, where they're saying you have to understand what libraries your code, what like code that you're using, you have to understand what libraries they're reliant on. They don't tell you how to do it. It's a very sort of like one line, like regulatory sort of thing. But SBOM is really the way to do that. So we've seen a lot of interest, like kind of from the financial sector. We've seen it in with the U.S. government. There's a CMMC has some requirements on looking at like third-party software and being able to analyze it. So we see that as like a new tactical sort of technical capability, in addition to kind of monitoring those companies and your supply chain. Sorry, I went off on a
Yeah.
little
No, so, but
tangent.
you know what? It's a complex problem. That's the
Yeah,
bottom line.
yeah,
And if you're not thinking as deep as you guys, well, you're going to miss a whole bunch of stuff, right?
yeah, yeah.
Brendan, how is AI helping you to do this stuff? Because it just seems to be mind-boggling
Oh,
the
yeah.
amount of, things you've got to be playing with. Are you guys, is that helping you? Is it
It
helping you?
is. Yeah, I will say it is. Like so there's AI and there's different like flavors of AI,
Sure.
obviously. I will say BlueVoyant has been an AI leader like since I joined. One of the things that I looked at initially when I joined BlueVoyant was our AI capability in looking at and mapping out sort of corporate entity structure using natural language processing. So it's not the sort of the generative AI that is sort of like the flavor of the day now. But it
Mhm.
was prior to that, they were using AI. We've now transitioned into a couple of like using Gen AI to do analysis of like different documents that are submitted by vendors, different like questions and answers to be able to reduce the time that people have to read documents, basically. It's a lot of like, hey, pull the important stuff out of these things, highlight it to analysts, allow them to make decisions more quickly. And then take those lessons that like the analysts have made and feed it back into the system to be able to say like, okay, like constantly sort of retrain these models so that we are getting the accurate information. BlueVoyant is also looking at we have a close partnership with Microsoft. We've been Microsoft Partner of the Year, I think like 3 years running, 4 years running in the MDR space. So like there's the Copilot aspects. There's like how are we using our SOC? How is our SOC automating things as quickly as possible using AI? So we're constantly exploring this. There's some misfires on some things that we've looked at, and it's like, oh, we spent 3 months on this, but wow, we're only getting 80% accuracy out of these like different
Mhm.
models, and it's like that's not saving a whole lot
Not
of time.
bad. You know,
You know?
but
So
it's
yeah,
early days, right? So you've got to test
yep,
these things out, right? Where it's
absolutely.
trial and
And
error. If there
yeah,
was,
yeah,
I don't think, Brendan, there's an AI playbook written out
you
there
really,
for us to
yeah,
follow. We're writing this book as
yeah.
we speak, right? And
And
the
it's
thing is,
it's so exciting. It's
amazing.
like, oh, that model didn't work. Boy, that
Yeah,
that was kind of garbage. But wow, this one is crushing it. We've got 98% accuracy on this.
yeah.
Wow, we're happy with that one. And then it's like, and then the problem change, so there's always these like really cool sort of projects that we get to work on that I get to work on. So
Cool stuff. So, Brandon, just the last questions here. Like, you go to a company, you spin up BlueVoyant, you see what's going on in their business. Um, what do you find, and what worries you? Do you go, "Oh no, I can't believe this"? There. What do you find?
yeah, I find that most companies want to do the right thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're constantly a lot of times they want what I'd like to the things that I really like to see about companies is when you go in and they're like, what's everybody else doing? What lessons have you learned, BlueVoyant? You're working with 900 different companies in this space. What's sort of the patterns that you see? So when I get those questions and when I get sort of a curious customer, that's when it's like super exciting. I love it when like customers are like, I'm not sure I trust you yet. Like what? And they really sort of question any of the assumptions that we're coming in with. And then we get to prove our like how good we are. That's like super fun. The I don't really Nothing really keeps me up at night. I've been in cybersecurity for 20 years now. I was at NSA and CIA building offensive tools. I did 3 tours in Afghanistan. I've run my own company. There's not a lot that really keeps me up at night from a stress standpoint when
I
it comes
get
to
it, man.
cybersecurity,
Yeah.
right? So because most companies are trying to do the right thing. They want to have the resources in the right place, and we all know that it's sort of it's mostly like a business function. Like how do we do the right thing at the right cost with the resources that we have, or with the resources that we might be able to get. But from I will say most companies have don't have the right sort of mentality, I would say, when it comes to third-party risk. There's a lot of focus on being able to report things from a regulatory standpoint to say like, oh yeah, we've got that. We're just like pushing. I just want to identify the problem in third-party risk. They don't necessarily want to fix the problem.
Mm.
So that's when companies have that attitude, that tends to be like, okay, well, don't you want to fix it? Like if you saw a problem in your own network, wouldn't you fix it? Well, yeah. You see that there's a problem in your supply chain, right? Don't you want to fix it? It's a business problem. So it's companies like that that have that attitude of like, I'll
Yeah.
observe the problem, but I won't take action. Those are the ones that I
There's a
guess.
graphic for that, Brendan. It's that,
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
get it.
And
Plausible
it's like,
deniability apparently is
yeah,
a legal term.
yeah. But
Look,
that whole thing is changing. So the
yeah.
philosophy of third-party risk of like identifying the problem, now it's like identify and fix the problem, right? Like you've seen it in Gartner, you've seen it in Forrester. There is a definite trend. I believe BlueVoyant is the leader in that. We can see that our competitors are taking on, they're trying to do the things that we've been doing for the last 5 years. And our clients are sort of whether it's two of the top five banks in the U.S., the largest auto manufacturer in the U.S., the largest retailer in the world, right? Like these are our clients, and they have this philosophy, and they're like pushing it. And then like we're going to see sort of like trending for the smaller companies or the followers here very soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just got to get it done. Maybe the rate that we get it done adjusts because
Yeah.
of lots of other factors in the world. But at some point, we've got to get it done. And I always say we got to get it done before the bad actors figure it out that it's
Yep.
not done.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
when they figure out it's not done, well, it's too late then,
Yeah.
and then you wish you had done it, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
what
I would say again, like sort of like final like parting, or not final parting shot, but like another parting shot is like, most security practitioners, you have to have a social network like of other security practitioners. BlueVoyant helps with that, with like how like the number of companies that we're dealing with. Yes, we have, 1,000 or so clients, but like we are dealing with, 50,000 companies on a daily basis, right? Where we're interacting, we're engaging with security teams, understanding and improving your relationships with your not just your social network of professionals that you're dealing with, but like your vendors and everything else. That is a good thing to have, to be able to ask for advice from your partners, like somebody at your level, a security practitioner, being saying, "Hey, we're seeing this. Are you seeing this? What's happening? How
hmm,
did you solve this problem?" Right? Like that's such an important part of basically security, I would say. So
Totally. I mean, it's a
yeah,
team sport, right?
it
And
is. Absolutely
if
is.
you know something, you better say something, because
Yeah. Yeah.
next day is going to be them seeing something and not saying
Right.
something to you.
Hey,
So,
have you seen this? Oh man, I've never seen that before, but
yeah,
that's
thank
that's
you.
really cool. That's crazy. Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah.
Critical stuff, my friend. Brendan, you get last word, man. What do you want everybody to know about BlueVoyant and this supply chain world that we've got to fix? What do you want everybody to know?
Yeah, I would say like BlueVoyant helps you be proactive with your security, basically like understanding what is happening both in your vendor ecosystem, but also internally to your own networks. And then also like we help solve the problem. We don't just like point the problem out. We're not like giving grades to companies or anything like that, like vendors in your ecosystem or third parties, right? We're not just giving grades. We're working with them to actually fix the problem. So it's really just it's more about reducing risk, fixing the problem, than it is about just sort of observing it and standing by passively.
You're not about scolding people. I get it, man.
I
Let's fix
don't know. Actually, scolding does not work, right? It's
the
like it's very
worst
much
thing
like
for to do to a
it,
human, isn't it?
it's terrible. It's terrible. So we are very much partners with like those
Yeah.
50,000 vendors that we're looking at. Like we are working with them. We're partners. We're not just saying like, these guys are garbage. Nobody is garbage. Everybody's trying to do the right thing. It's just
Eventually,
yeah,
Brandon, some people who are maybe a little bit behind the ball, right? They learn, they catch up, and then they're the
yeah,
ones, ends up. No one is doing this I think no one is doing this to fail,
right,
is the right word, right? I mean,
right.
nobody wants to fail at this
Yeah,
game,
I mean,
right?
think
So
think about like if you're a company and you have a vendor, you want that vendor to be good because for some reason you're buying their product, right? Like,
they
so
better be taking care of me. Good
yes,
stuff. Website is bluevoyant.com.
yes, BlueVoyant.com.
There you go. Keep us posted, Brendan. Really great stuff, man. I'm glad folks like you are doing this hard work every day to protect mere mortals like us on the back room trying to survive every day. So keep up the great work, my friend.
Good
Cheers.
fun. Thank you very much, Julian. Appreciate it.
Bye.